Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. At sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin.
And then just globally, do you have a sense of, sorry, I'm not trying to give you an ego here, but like if you look at the numbers on YouTube for like the pre-tournament press conferences, how much people watch them?
She stopped the match for this. Eala's heartbreaking hug with disabled fan stuns Qatar Open. Plus, her shocking Dubai comeback that has the entire tennis world losing its mind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, your absolute #1 destination for the rawest, most electrifying, and deeply human stories coming out of the world of professional tennis. Today, we are not simply talking about forehands, backhands, or scoreboards. We are not here to debate serve percentages or ranking points. We are here to talk about the moments that stop time dead in its tracks. The moments that reach through a television screen, grab you by the heart, and squeeze until the tears run freely. We have a story emerging from the Qatar Open that is absolutely shattering the internet right now. A story so breathtakingly pure, so devastatingly raw, and so profoundly human that it has left millions upon millions of people around the world weeping openly. It involves the undisputed pride of the Philippines, the extraordinary Alexandra Eala, a 72-year-old grandmother who risked absolutely everything she had left for one final, burning wish and a hug. A single, desperate, magnificent hug that was heard and felt around the entire world. And that is not even the complete story. Because as if the universe wanted to write the most dramatic screenplay ever committed to film, we also have a massive breaking update on Alex's full-blown redemption arc unfolding live in Dubai that you will simply not be able to believe until you hear every single detail. So take a deep breath, settle in, and hold on tight. This is Champions Tennisitics, and this is the story of the hug that changed everything. Setting the scene, Court 3, Doha, Qatar. Let us set the scene properly, because this story deserves nothing less. We are at the Qatar Open, one of the most prestigious early-season tournaments on the WTA calendar, a tournament known for its glittering desert skyline, its fierce competition, and the brutally unforgiving heat that hangs in the Doha air like a warm, invisible blanket. The stakes are always high here. The tennis is always fierce. Thousands of fans pack themselves into the stands of these courts, creating walls of noise that vibrate right through the soles of your shoes. The cameras flash constantly, the crowd roars, and the very air itself seems charged with tension and anticipation. But on this particular day, amidst that enormous, chaotic sea of faces and flags and voices, there was one quiet, solitary figure sitting perfectly still. Her name is Eala. She is 72 years old. She is from the quiet, sun-baked rural landscapes of Victoria, Australia. Eala was not there for the glamour. She was not there for the networking opportunities or the corporate hospitality suites or the chance to be seen by anyone. Eala was sitting in a wheelchair, her legs rendered completely powerless by a chronic and debilitating illness that she has battled in the shadows for years, mostly alone, with the quiet dignity of someone who has learned to endure pain without broadcasting it to the world. For Eala, this day was not just a tennis match. This was a pilgrimage. This was the finish line of a personal, agonizing journey that had drained every last ounce of her physical energy and every remaining cent of her carefully guarded savings. You see, Eala carried a dream, a simple, blazing, unshakable wish that kept her fighting through the darkest and most painful days of her ongoing treatment. She wanted to see her. She wanted to see Alexandra Eala, the young Filipino warrior who had slowly, quietly, profoundly become her reason to keep going. To Eala, Alex was not just a tennis player. She was a beacon of light in genuine darkness. She was living proof that a person could be knocked down again and still refuse to stay on the ground. Eala saw something intimate and deeply personal in Alex's relentless, defiant grit. She saw a refusal to surrender that mirrored her own private daily battle. And so Eala did something that most people in her situation would never even dare to consider. Living on a modest pension, already stretched thin by the unrelenting financial demands of her medical care, Eala made a decision that can only be described as an act of pure, desperate love. She took the commemorative necklace that her late husband had given her decades ago, a precious, irreplaceable heirloom that held within its links a lifetime of shared memories, shared laughter, shared sorrows, and a love that had not diminished even beyond death, and she sold it. She sold the last tangible piece of her past, the last physical connection to her husband, to buy a single ticket to Court 3, to buy a few hours of being in the same breathing space as Alexandra Eala. Just once, just to see her with her own eyes. The moment that stopped the world. The match was intense from the very first point. The crack of the ball against the strings of the racket rang out like a gunshot across the court. Eala was locked in, completely absorbed in the battle, her eyes sharp and focused, her feet moving with practiced precision as she read every angle, fought for every single point, and poured herself completely into the competition in the way that has become her signature. The crowd was with her. The energy in the stadium was crackling, alive, almost electrical. But then something shifted. It was a moment so subtle that the cameras almost missed it entirely. During a brief, quiet lull between points, amidst the sustained roar of the packed crowd, Eala's eyes drifted slowly toward the sidelines. And they stopped. They locked onto the frail, still figure in the wheelchair. They locked onto Elena. Eala did not know her name. She did not know that Elena had traveled all the way from rural Victoria, Australia. She did not know about the chronic illness, the years of quiet suffering, the meager pension stretched to its absolute limits, or the late husband's necklace that had been sold to fund that very seat in the stands. But the human soul, when it is truly open, has an extraordinary and inexplicable way of communicating volumes without a single spoken word. Perhaps Alex saw the way Elena was leaning forward in her chair, her knuckles white as bone where her hands gripped the armrests. Perhaps she caught the particular quality of the tears shimmering in the old woman's eyes, that very specific combination of physical pain and overwhelming, almost unbearable hope that is unlike any other human expression. In that fraction of a second, the tennis match simply ceased to matter. The ranking points evaporated. The scoreboard faded into meaningless numbers on a board. None of it was real anymore. Only Elena was real. The entire stadium watched in collective confusion as Eala stopped. She did not walk to the service line. She did not reach for her towel or take a sip of water. She did not consult with her coach or tap her strings or bounce on her heels the way players do when they are resetting mentally. Instead, she placed her right hand slowly, deliberately over her chest, directly over her heart, in a gesture of such profound and wordless gratitude that several people in the front rows began to cry before they even understood what was happening next. And then she ran. Not walked. Not jogged. She ran at full sprint. Not toward the baseline. Not toward the net. Not toward any part of the playing court. She ran toward the sidelines. She ran toward Elena. The security guards flinched instinctively. The chair umpire leaned forward with visible uncertainty. The entire crowd held its breath as one. But Alex did not stop until she reached that wheelchair. And there, in front of thousands of stunned witnesses from every corner of the globe, in front of rolling cameras and flashing photographers, and a stadium full of people who had come expecting only tennis, the young superstar wrapped her arms completely around the 72-year-old grandmother and held on. It was a tight, fierce, almost desperate hug. It was the kind of embrace that does not perform itself for cameras. It was the kind that bridges generations and continents and languages and social divides, and the vast, seemingly uncrossable distance between superstar and fan. The stadium, which had been a cauldron of sound just moments before, fell into the most profound and complete silence any of those thousands of people had probably ever experienced in a public place. You could, without any exaggeration whatsoever, hear a pin drop on that court. And then Alexandra Eala whispered 3 words into Elena's ear. 3 words that no camera could capture, but that Elena herself has since shared with anyone willing to listen. 3 words that this woman will carry with her for the rest of her life. 3 words that cost nothing and meant everything. Thank you for coming. That silence shattered. It erupted outward into a thunderous standing ovation that was louder, rawer, and more emotionally charged than anything that had been produced by any match point or trophy presentation witnessed in that stadium in years. People were crying openly in the stands. Complete strangers were turning to embrace each other without a word of introduction, and Elena, completely overwhelmed by the force of the moment she had sold everything to experience, wept without restraint, her trembling hands holding on to Alex with the desperate tenderness of someone clinging to a miracle they never quite believed would actually arrive. Why this moment carries the weight of a world. This story is currently trending on every major social media platform on the planet. It is being shared from Manila to Melbourne, from London to Los Angeles, from Tokyo to Toronto. It is appearing on front pages and in television news segments and in the private group chats of people who have never watched a single tennis match in their lives, but who understand, instinctively and immediately, that they are looking at something genuinely important. But to truly understand the full, staggering weight of this hug, we need to place it in its proper context. We need to understand exactly where Alexandra Eala was, professionally and emotionally, when this moment occurred. Because, folks, the story gets significantly more complicated before it gets even more beautiful. We are in February 2026. Alexandra Eala is 20 years old. She is no longer whispered about as a promising junior or a future prospect somewhere down the line. She is a legitimate, full-blown contender for the biggest titles in women's tennis, knocking loudly and persistently on the door of the global elite. She recently achieved a career-high ranking of world number 40, a figure that represents years of relentless, grinding, unglamorous work across hundreds of matches in dozens of countries. She is the undisputed pride of Southeast Asia, a region that has been hungering for a true tennis icon for as long as anyone can remember. The pressure that sits on this young woman's shoulders every single time she walks onto a court is genuinely immense. When Alex Eala plays, it is not just Alex Eala playing. Millions of Filipinos are setting alarm clocks for 3 o'clock in the morning. They are huddling around phones and laptops with buffering live streams, willing the signal to hold. They are praying in living rooms and dormitories and break rooms. She carries the hopes of every young girl in the Philippines who has ever picked up a racket and allowed herself to dream of grand slams and glory. Coming into the Qatar Open, the expectations surrounding her were sky-high. She had just produced a magnificent run in Abu Dhabi, reaching the quarterfinals in singles and the semifinals in doubles, playing with a confidence and clarity that suggested 2026 could be the year she truly breaks through. She was, by every observable measure, playing the best tennis of her career. And then the Qatar Open began. In the first round, Alex drew Teresa Valentova, the rising Czech star who has been making waves on the tour with her aggressive baseline game and remarkable composure for someone so young. It was a genuine battle. Alex fought with everything she had. She pushed the first set all the way to a tiebreak, showing the trademark Eala grit and fight that her fans love so deeply. But she could not close it out. The tiebreak slipped away from her in agonizing fashion, and then, as sometimes happens in tennis when the mental thread begins to unravel, the second set collapsed quickly. She lost 6-7, 1-6. A brutal, premature exit from a tournament where she had arrived with legitimate hopes of going deep. The critics came immediately. They always do. Social media filled up with the familiar voices of doubt. Can she truly handle the biggest stages? Is the pressure of expectation becoming too heavy? Is the relentless weight of an entire nation's hopes beginning to grind her down? The noise was deafening. And now, picture this. You have just suffered that kind of crushing, public defeat. You are exhausted, physically and emotionally. You are frustrated and disappointed and fighting the quiet, dark voice in your own head that wonders if maybe the critics have a point. In that specific moment, in that specific headspace, most professional athletes in that situation walk off the court with their eyes down and their headphones in, retreating from the world as fast as their legs will carry them. Alex Eala saw Elena instead. Alex Eala ran toward her. And that, right there, tells you everything you will ever need to know about the character of this young woman. The hug was not a publicity stunt. It was not a calculated moment of brand management. It was a 20-year-old professional athlete, in the immediate aftermath of a devastating professional loss, finding within herself the emotional capacity to look outward, to recognize someone else's pain, and to choose connection over retreat. It was a statement of character that no scoreboard will ever be able to measure. The Dubai miracle, when karma puts on a tennis dress. Now we arrive at the part of this story that belongs in a Hollywood screenplay, because if a screenwriter submitted this sequence of events to a studio, they would be told it was too on the nose, too perfectly constructed, too conveniently inspirational to be believed. But this is not a screenplay. This is real life. And real life, when it decides to write a great story, does not apologize for being dramatic. After the emotional firestorm of Qatar, after the devastating first-round loss and the viral, world-stopping moment with Eala, Alexandra Eala flew to Dubai for the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships, one of the most prestigious WTA 1000 events on the entire calendar. She needed to reset. She needed to breathe. She needed to clear the noise out of her head and find the version of herself that had played such brilliant tennis in Abu Dhabi just weeks before. And perhaps, just perhaps, something about that hug with Eala gave her something that no amount of coaching sessions or tactical analysis or physical training could have provided. Perhaps it reminded her, in the most visceral and undeniable way possible, of the pure, primal, joyous reason she picked up a tennis racket in the first place. Perhaps knowing that a woman had sold her most precious possession just to watch her play ignited a fire in her belly and a clarity in her mind that transformed the way she walked onto a court. And she has Eala, not physically present in Dubai, perhaps, but present in the way that significant human encounters always remain present, as a weight, a reminder, a clarity about what matters and why. When Alex walks to the baseline against Kirsty, when the pressure of the match point arrives and the familiar weight of expectation presses down, she will carry with her the knowledge that a 72-year-old woman in a wheelchair sold the last piece of her past to watch her play. That is not a burden. That is a gift. That is the most clarifying possible answer to the question every athlete eventually must answer honestly. Why am I doing this? Alex Eala is doing this for Eala. She is doing this for every person who has ever turned on a screen in a dark moment and found light in watching someone else fight. She is doing this because she is 20 years old and magnificent and has only just begun to discover the full extent of what she is capable of. And she is doing this because, somewhere in rural Victoria, Australia, in a small house without the necklace that once hung above a fireplace or beside a mirror, a 72-year-old woman is sitting in front of a television, watching every single point, crying every time the camera finds her favorite player's face, and cheering loud enough to fill the silence of an empty room. The bigger picture, what this all means. We cover a lot of stories on this channel. We cover the upsets and the comebacks and the rivalries and the controversies and all the dramatic, addictive, infuriating, wonderful chaos that makes professional tennis one of the most compelling sports on the planet. But every so often, a story comes along that is not really about tennis at all. It is about tennis as the vehicle through which something more fundamental and more important about human experience gets expressed. The story of Alex and Eala is one of those stories. It is a story about the way greatness, real greatness, expresses itself not just in the execution of athletic skill, but in the quality of presence and empathy a person brings to every interaction. It is a story about the way suffering can coexist with hope, and the way hope can survive the most severe material losses if it is anchored to something or someone that genuinely represents the possibility of transcendence. It is a story about how a single moment of authentic human connection, a running embrace on a dusty court in Doha, can ripple outward in ways that neither the giver nor the receiver could have possibly anticipated or planned. And perhaps most importantly, it is a story about perspective. In the pressure cooker environment of professional sport, where athletes are taught from childhood to eliminate distraction, to focus entirely inward, to treat every loss as a catastrophe and every opponent as an obstacle, the ability to look outward, to see the human being in the wheelchair and run toward her rather than past her, is genuinely radical. Alex Eala is learning, at 20 years old, a lesson that many athletes twice her age never fully absorb, that the stakes of the scoreboard, however real they feel, are dwarfed by the stakes of the human connections that the sport makes possible. When you understand that, when you truly internalize it the way Alex seemed to in that moment on court 3, the match point does not get easier to win. It gets easier to play. So as we follow Alex Eala through the rest of the Dubai Championships, and through whatever extraordinary chapter 2026 has still to write for her, let us commit to watching differently. Let us watch the player as much as the ball. Let us appreciate the human being behind the racket, with all of her courage and her vulnerability and her improbable, beautiful capacity for grace under pressure of every conceivable kind. Let us cheer not just for the winners she hits and the breaks she converts, but for the moments like the one she gave Eala, The moments that have nothing to do with the scoreboard and everything to do with why sport matters in the first place. And somewhere out there, in rural Victoria, in a quiet house that holds the ghost of a necklace and the living memory of a man who is gone, a 72-year-old woman is watching. She is watching Alex Eala carry the weight of a nation and the memory of a hug onto a court in Dubai, and she is cheering with every breath she has. And we are right there with her. This is the beauty of tennis. This is the beauty of sport. And this is exactly why we are Champions Tennisitics. Your voice matters. Join the conversation. Now, we want to hear from you, because this community is what makes Champions Tennisitics what it is, and your thoughts on this story matter. Did the story of Elena and her husband's necklace bring genuine tears to your eyes the way it brought them to ours? Do you believe in the power of kindness as a competitive fuel? Do you believe that what Alex gave to Elena in that moment in Qatar translated directly into the extraordinary performance she delivered against Paulini in Dubai? Is the Elena effect real, or is that giving the universe too much credit for narrative convenience? And the big question, the one that is keeping every tennis fan on the edge of their seat right now: can Alexandra Eala keep this extraordinary run going in Dubai? Can she get past Thirsty? Can she go all the way to a WTA 1000 title that would announce her arrival at the absolute summit of women's tennis in a way that nobody, not even the most committed doubter, could argue with? We want every single one of your predictions, your prayers, your arguments, and your blue, yellow, and red Filipino hearts flooding the comment section right now. This is a community that believes in what this young woman represents, and this is the moment to show it. Let Elena know, through the sheer volume of this community's love and support, that her sacrifice and her journey mattered to people she has never met on the other side of the world. Leave a comment. Start a conversation. Tell us what this story means to you. If this story moved you, if you believe in the power of genuine human kindness, and if you want to stay right here at the front of Alex Eala's extraordinary journey as she chases history in Dubai and beyond, you know exactly what to do. Smash that like button right now, as hard as you can, until it lights up gold. Hit that subscribe button and turn on every notification bell available to you, because Champions Tennisitics is covering the Dubai Championships live and in full, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss a single development. Share this video with everyone you know who loves tennis, or who loves sport, or who simply needs to be reminded today that the world still contains moments of breathtaking, uncalculated, completely genuine human decency. Until next time, keep your heads up, keep your hearts open, and never, not ever, underestimate the power of running towards someone who needs you. From all of us here at Champions Tennisitics, thank you for watching, thank you for caring, and thank you for being exactly the kind of community that this sport deserves. This is Champions Tennisitics. We'll see you on the court. Champions Tennisitics, like, subscribe, never miss a serve.
Alex, after a terrific year last year, how does it feel to be making your main draw debut at Melbourne?
It feels great. I'm super excited, coming in. Kamusta mga kapong Pinoy? Surprise! Excited na akong imbitahin kayong lahat na manood sa mga laban ko sa Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open.